Hi, and thanks for tuning in to This Week in East Brunswick, the township's own news and information program. Today we bring you part 2 of Wildlife in Our Landscape with Head of Recreation and Parks, Tom Schuster. Our regular features will include health facts with Ken Shalhoub and information on Hepatitis B vaccines, For Your Information with news on library services, Quick Licks with Bob Nemser on film, grain, and speed, Consumer Aware with Adrian Eisner on buying a pet, and our Township Council review. Next week on Channel 8 begins Monday at 10 a.m. with Look Great, Feel Great, and a look at color analysis for the fashion conscious. At 10:30, Our Town features an interview with Tower Center developer Alan Landis. Tuesday at 7 p.m., it's Check It Out from the Libraries of Middlesex. Followed at 7:30 by Sports Talk with John Megliero and Ray Sipperly, Athletic Director of Votech High School. Then at 8 p.m., About East Brunswick with the Mayor and a discussion on fire prevention. Wednesday at 3, it's Stories from the Library, read by East Brunswick librarians. Wednesday at 7:30, For Art's Sake, contrast the Paper Mill Playhouse and Plays in the Park. At 8 p.m., it's the Township Council budget hearings. Now stay tuned for Wildlife in Our Landscape following this message.
Count me in!
Count me in.
Count me in. Me too.
Count me in.
Count me in.
Count me in.
Count me in.
America is yours. Count yourselves in.
Our state continues to serve as home to many accomplished artists whose work centers on the themes of wildlife and the environment. The assembled works represent a cross-section of the many fine artists now working in New Jersey. In their choice of artistic medium and subject matter, these artists reflect the diversity of New Jersey's human talents and wildlife resources. Douglas Allen of Neshannock Station is an established illustrator and painter specializing in North American big game animals. He has studied at the Newark School of Fine and Industrial Arts and with noted wildlife artist Paul Bransom in Jackson, Wyoming. He has illustrated 35 books and has contributed illustrations and paintings for many periodicals including Sports Afield, Outdoor Life, National Wildlife, American Artist, Time, and Reader's Digest. Douglas Allen is also a writer and advisor to publications. He has co-authored a biography of N.C. Wyeth and has written several exhibition catalogs. He also serves as an art consultant for Sports Afield magazine. In 1964, Allen's design was selected by the United States Postal Service for the postage stamp issued to commemorate New Jersey's 300th anniversary. He has also produced designs for the World Wildlife Stamp Program and participated in competitions for various state waterfowl stamps. Many New Jerseyans may be familiar with the images of Carol Decker as a result of her frequent contributions to New Jersey Outdoors magazine. A resident of Branchville, she is an accomplished illustrator and painter who has combined her talent in art with her interest in wildlife. She has spent many hours in field study and research of wildlife before completing a piece in her favored mediums of pencil, pen, and ink, and color acrylics. Her interest in animals, their behavior and habitat, is reflected in the technique and detail characteristic of her work. Carol Decker has done many book illustrations, including, most recently, Wood Notes, a companion guide for birdwatching by Richard Wood, and Memoirs from a Naturalist Notebook, co-authored with Richard Hedstrom. She has also contributed her talents to several public projects determined to raise people's consciousness about wildlife, including designing the New Jersey Tax Checkoff for Wildlife logo and illustrating several educational publications for the Raptor Trust of New Jersey. Her work is represented in many public and private collections, and she has participated in many exhibitions. Her work has received many awards and citations, including the Best of Show Award at the New Jersey Wings and Water Festival in 1983 for her painting, Spring Beauty. Leslie Del Geyer of North Plainfield has committed her talent and time to capturing animal artistry in watercolor and pastel painting. A graduate of the Ducret School of the Arts, Del Geyer has recently returned from Europe, where she was studying and working. Miss Del Geyer has also done greeting card designs and magazine and advertising illustrations. She is a member of the Society of Animal Artists, the Pastel Society of America, and the International Fine Arts Guild. Her work has been exhibited in New Jersey and New York, and she has won several awards at Pastel Society of America shows. Oil painting on slate is the technique that Esther Druckenmiller employs to express the world of wildlife. She enjoyed sketching and painting as a child and continued this work into adulthood. Her art career was interrupted so that she could devote time to her family of 6. Esther Druckenmiller returned to painting 14 years ago and has specialized in doing commissions of animals on natural-colored Vermont slate. She paints in her studio in Summit, where she produces works for private collectors and fine art galleries and shops. Thomas Harada of Rutherford is in the fast-rising young man to watch category in the world of wildlife art. Harada has scored several recent achievements in the highly competitive field of waterfowl stamp design. In 1984, his oil painting Canvasback was chosen the first of state issue to inaugurate the New Jersey Waterfowl Stamp Program. Since winning the New Jersey competition, his work has been selected for the 1985 North Carolina Duck Stamp and the 1985 New Hampshire Duck Stamp. Thomas Harada was educated at Colorado College, the Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, and the Art Students League in New York City. He has also studied painting with Robert Schultz and Louis DiDonato and anatomy with Robert B. Hale. Harada's work is both dramatic and subtle in its portrayal of wildlife themes. The accessibility of his work has made him popular with both collectors and major exhibitors, and the visibility of his duck stamp work will surely spread his recognition throughout the country. Stephen Martin is one of New Jersey's most prolific and well-known artists. His wood engravings are in the collections of numerous museums and institutions, including the Philadelphia Museum of Art, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, the Hirshhorn Gallery in Washington, D.C., the Chicago Art Institute, and the New Jersey State Museum. Martin, who lives in Roosevelt, was educated at the School of the Art Institute in Chicago and worked as an engraver for 4 years after graduation. He later moved to New Jersey, where he worked as an art instructor and developed his technique for wood engraving. He has provided drawings and engravings for many periodicals, including Scientific American, Natural History, and the New Jersey Sierran. He has been a long-standing and consistent contributor to national and local environmental groups. He has most recently demonstrated his support for wildlife and the environment through the special commission of 3 limited edition works, the proceeds from which benefit the New Jersey Natural Lands Trust. Some may recognize John Schoenherr as the renowned illustrator of over 10 books, including such popular works as Rascal, Gentle Ben, and Frank Herbert's Dune. Others may recognize the Locktown painter as one of the elite of wildlife artists whose range of work embraces both science fiction illustration and masterful still-life painting. When John Schoenherr was 8 years old, he received his first set of watercolors. He would soon graduate to oils and eventually attend classes at the Art Students League in New York City. While in high school, Schoenherr showed as much interest in animals as he did in art. He moved on to the Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, where he helped develop his skills as an illustrator. He later studied with William A. Smith, whose criticism and guidance enhanced his professional development. Growing up in New York City has given Schoenherr a particular appreciation for stone and structure. That appreciation is demonstrated in his interest in rock climbing and his particular affection for the treatment of texture and structure in his artwork. And his travels to Iran, Arizona, and Alaska to study more exotic animals have also exposed him to a variety of locales where the structure and exposed mass of the landscape can be readily reflected in his work. The significance of structure and shape in his work impacts us because of the life and vitality he imparts to both the animals and the landscape.
Does the library have a copy of IRS Tax Form 2106? Hi, my name is Susan Keel, Head of Reference and Information Services at the East Brunswick Public Library. Questions like this one are asked every day during this time of year, yet many of our viewers are not aware of the wide range of materials we have to help the taxpayer. Today, our question takes us to the tax information display near the reference desk. Here you will find the most popular federal tax forms, as well as copies of the most popular tax preparation guides. You can also ask for New Jersey and New York state tax forms at the reference desk. If we are out of distribution copies, you can always photocopy the specimen copies provided by the Internal Revenue Service. We also will be open until 11 p.m. April 15th for your convenience. So, does the library have a copy of Form 2106? Yes, just ask at the reference desk. If you have a question, don't hesitate to stop by the reference desk or call us at 390-6767. Hope to see you soon.
A new vaccine for hepatitis B is nearing FDA approval. What's interesting about this new vaccine is that it's being produced by yeast. And the way they do it is the way they do all these magical things with molecular biology of our times. They insert the gene for a specific section of the virus that causes hepatitis B, a section on the outer part of the virus that seems to be good at producing antibodies. They insert that into a yeast particle. The yeast then produces, they grow the yeast, and the yeast produces more and more of this particular protein, and then they use that protein to inoculate people, and then they produce an antibody, and they have a vaccine for that particular disease. Now, the advantages of yeast, says Pablo Valenzuela, a San Francisco researcher, are that unlike bacteria, which are commonly used for these types of genetic manipulations, it doesn't produce toxins. Yeast do not produce toxins. The technology for growing yeast is well developed, and the species being used, baker's yeast and brewer's yeast, don't infect people. Now, the problems with the current hepatitis B vaccine is that the vaccine is human-derived, so it's expensive, and actually too expensive for third world countries, and it's also a little bit dangerous because it does come from human blood sources, and there are many ways that diseases can be transmitted from people to people using human blood sources. Now, researchers are testing the yeast-made products also for osteoarthritis and feline leukemia, which are other diseases that they're working on vaccines for. And it seems that researchers at Genentech are also trying to produce interferon using yeast. So it seems like yeast are becoming the hot item for some of these new genetic manipulations. But the hepatitis B vaccine, a cheaper version of it and a more effective version of it, will be on the market very soon. Thanks for watching Health Facts.
Hi, I'm Bob Nemser. Welcome to Quick Licks. Our topic, the continuation of film part 2. In our last segment, we discovered that an ASA of 100 is twice as fast as an ASA of 50 and half as fast as an ASA of 200. A slow film has a thin, even deposit of small silver halide crystals. A fast film has concentrations of larger crystals. The dye molecules linked to the halides form in direct proportion to the size of the silver grains. The pattern of minute dye particles forms the photographic image, much the same way as a tapestry is made up of tiny individual stitches. This is film's grain. The faster the film, the coarser and more pronounced is the grain. Kodachrome ASA 25 color reversal film, a relatively slow film, gives the sharpest results with excellent saturation and color contrast with barely perceptible grain, even at 100 times magnification, ideal for brightly lit subjects. Sometimes grain is an intricate part of the mood and intent of the image, as might be color cast to the blue or the red spectrum. For these individual preferences, perceptions, and situations, there are varied speeds, types, and brands of film to choose from. A very slow film will not only be ideal for brightly lit subjects, but for any subject where a degree of movement blur is required for an interpretive effect. It is here where depth of field and shutter speeds are more controlled with a wider choice of options at your call. A very fast film, a high ASA, will be better for dim lighting conditions or any moving subject that has to be frozen in action. A fast film may, however, be too fast to allow the photographer much choice of camera controls in brilliant lighting. It is important to bear in mind the difference between eye and film response. Inside a room lit with domestic tungsten bulbs, for example, the eye accepts the illumination as white, just as outdoors it accepts daylight as white. In fact, the artificial lighting is much more orange in content. Color film cannot adapt in this way. Most films are balanced for daylight, including flash. Some films, though, are designed specifically for tungsten studio lamps. Daylight film shot outdoor with artificial light gives an orange cast. Tungsten film shot outdoors gives a blue cast. These casts can be controlled and corrected with filters in front of the lenses. We will discuss filters at a future segment. The amount of exposure can be varied either side of normal, yet still give an acceptable result. This is referred to as a film's latitude. For example, Kodacolor 400 has a latitude of 1.5 to 2 stops. This means for average subjects, you can bracket 1.5 to 2 stops higher or lower than your normal light reading and still get acceptable color rendition. The latitude of black and white film is generous because you can vary the processing and printing and still produce a picture of acceptable tonal values. But color film latitude is limited because processing must be confined to strict standards to maintain the correct colors. Our next segment will conclude our exploration of film. We will discuss specific brands of color film, their uses and characteristics, and see examples of photos showing these characteristics. Until then, thank you for joining me, and keep clicking.
Hello, and welcome to Consumer Aware. I'm Adrienne Eisner, Director of the East Brunswick Consumer Affairs Office. Perhaps your family is considering the purchase of a pet. Remember that pet ownership can be fun, but it is also a responsibility. Each year, millions of dogs and cats are abandoned and left to roam wild. Do not get a pet unless your family can care for it properly. There are several places to buy a pet. They can be purchased from breeding kennels, pet stores, and private sellers whose dogs have had litters. Also, you can purchase them from organizations which take in unwanted animals. The best way to choose a kennel or pet store is to ask for recommendations from a veterinarian or friends. Next, visit the place recommended. Note the cleanliness and how the animals are treated and handled. Make sure the pets appear healthy and sociable. and that accurate health records have been kept. The pet should appear physically healthy. Eyes clear, nose not runny, stomach flattened. A distended stomach could indicate worms. The coat should look healthy and glossy with no apparent hair loss. There also should be no unpleasant odor. The pet should have a well-balanced temperament, friendly, responds to your attention, and does not mind being held. Experts recommend selecting a moderately tempered dog. Also, a pet's personality develops within the first 6 months of age, so it is possible for you to shape it. A registered dog is one whose pedigree or family tree shows ancestors that were purebred. The American Kennel Club is one registry well known to many people. To register your dog, you need the pedigree and litter registration form. The sale of dogs and cats by pet dealers is subject to a regulation of the New Jersey Consumer Fraud Act. The regulation basically provides protection for consumers who purchase from a pet dealer and later find the animal to be ill or genetically defective. Under the law, if the pet becomes ill within 14 days after purchase, the consumer must take the pet to a veterinarian for an examination. This must be done within the 14-day period. If the veterinarian certifies the animal as unfit, the consumer has a choice of 3 options. 1, return the animal and receive a full refund of the purchase price plus veterinary expenses up to the cost of the animal. 2, keep the animal and receive reimbursement from the pet dealer for veterinary expenses up to the price of the animal. 3, return the animal and select another pet which is of equivalent value. The pet dealer in this situation is still liable for the veterinary expenses incurred up to the price of the animal. Refund or reimbursement must be made not later than 10 business days following the receipt of a signed veterinarian certification. The consumer also has the right to receive an animal history certificate signed by the pet dealer. Information such as the animal's breed, sex, age, color, birth date, place of birth, previous owners, and medical history should be included in the certificate. If you have any further questions about the New Jersey pet regulations, please call us at the East Brunswick Consumer Affairs Office. Our telephone number is 390-6954. We're in the office in the municipal building from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. Thank you for joining me on Consumer Aware. Hope I'll see you again next week.
At Tuesday's Township Council meeting, Councilman John Runyon proposed an ordinance designed to limit the rate of growth within the town green area until several road improvements, including the realignment of Riders Lane, are complete. First, Mr. Runyon outlined the reasoning behind the ordinance.
This community and this region, indeed the entire state of New Jersey, is subject to growth pressures due to, 1, the need for affordable housing in this state, 2, the current economic climate, which is extremely beneficial for development, 3, the tremendous growth of jobs in the New Brunswick-Princeton corridor, which requires housing for the job holders, and 4, the opportunity for development per se that Mount Laurel litigations have opened up everywhere. It is my opinion, however, that the Supreme Court and the legislature have not taken away our responsibility and our right to manage growth within the legal context provided for us. The master plan for the town green area states, the entire town green study area is to be developed over approximately a 10-year period. The phasing will ensure that several areas of concern arising from development of the town green can be solved without burdening existing township facilities and services. 5 such concerns are road circulation, sanitary sewers, storm sewers, water, and schools.
After reading his prepared statement, Mr. Runyon began the discussion of the ordinance.
The fact of the matter is that I believe that the municipality has the power under the Land Use Act to phase the development and growth of this community in an orderly fashion. We are under certain court mandates that preclude us from precluding development, but certainly we can manage the growth of this community perhaps more effectively than we're doing now. And what I'm proposing here simply is that the planning board use their phasing techniques, phasing ability. We mandated actually to the planning board that they utilize the phasing technique to prohibit development until these roadways improvements are completed. I believe we have that power and that authority. I would certainly, even if it is in a gray area, like to adopt the ordinance and litigate it, because we have to slow growth in this community until these circulation improvements are completed.
While we all have a gut feeling that what you're proposing is absolutely right and just, or at least I have a feeling what you're proposing is right and justified, what we have to do is come up with the facts and studies and traffic reports and a appropriate legal basis so that we're not arbitrary and capricious, and so whatever decision the council does make has a chance of holding up in the courts.
The time has long passed since this should have happened, but being that it is happening now, I would support it fully. No matter who makes the recommendation, I think it's a good one, and I supported it back many years ago when Mr. Hudak was making the recommendations. And back in those years, they were putting up 4, 5, and 600 COs a year, and it's been compounded. And so if it couldn't have been done before this, I hope it gets done now and done in a legal way that it can be binding.
Traffic has become the bane of our lives. I fully understand what you're doing. I am basically relaying to you, A, my understanding of the recent statute, the existing statutes, the legitimate threats, if there is such a thing, of those who say should a moratorium be passed, this is what they're going to do. And I'm just basically telling you those are concerns, and you're, I think, aware of every one of them. And basically you're saying if it's in the gray area, you would just as soon litigate it than continue with the traffic and all the other problems we have.
Another topic of discussion was the township's insurance woes. Following a presentation by Assistant Administrator Wendy Wolf, Township Administrator Gregory Fehrenbach explained why the township is better off staying with their current carrier than shopping around for cheaper insurance.
Right now is not the time for a municipality, no matter which one it is, including East Brunswick, to take a look at an insurance carrier and say, you're charging too much, we don't want your coverage. Those choices don't exist today, and one of the things that one has to be sensitive enough to is to know when it's appropriate to beat in somebody's head for a price or when it's sensible to get the coverage. And right now, given the liabilities that this municipality has as a potential, it is not in our overall best interest to start to try to save a nickel and possibly lose our shirt. And that's the position we've taken. The township already has a policy, an administrative policy, whereby they go out on a 3-year period and seek prices. That shows something else to insurance carriers, and that is that it's a stable environment in which to provide insurance. Very often, if you're willing to go out on a 1-year basis, a 2-year basis seeking prices, insurance companies start looking at you and say, you're simply looking for the best deal in town, and when a problem arises, we're not going to be here for you. And I've been around that. I think the actions that have taken place here are significantly more reasonable and more sensitive to the marketplace than many other municipalities do. And as a matter of fact, there's coverage here that right now other municipalities in the state don't have.
That's all for this week. Thanks for watching.